In the hilly village of Nkanu, the name Okafor once meant everything. It meant wealth, respect, and power. Pa Okafor was a giant among farmers, his barns overflowing, his voice carrying the weight of wisdom in village meetings. But that was a lifetime ago. After his passing, the great Okafor family scattered like dust in the Harmattan wind. The eldest, Uchenna, remained, clinging to the remnants of their father's land. The second son, Obiora, sought his fortune in the bustling city of Enugu with a small transport business. The only daughter, Ifeoma, married a wealthy man in Onitsha, embracing a life of comfort. And then there was Ejike, the youngest, the last son of Nkanu. He was the one people whispered about. 15 years he'd been gone, vanished after a bitter fight with his father. Some said he stole money, others said he ran from a marriage he didn't want. The truth was lost to time, and Ejike became a ghost, a story told to frighten stubborn children. Until one Harmattan morning, he returned. He drove into the village in a dusty Toyota, wearing a simple white shirt and dark glasses that couldn't hide the years etched on his face. The villagers stopped and stared. Whispers filled the air. "Is that not Ejike, the last son?" He offered polite smiles and greeted old faces, but you could feel the tension brewing, thick and heavy like the coming rain. His siblings didn't exactly roll out the welcome mat. Uchenna, his arms folded tightly across his chest, met him at the gate. "So, you still remember the way to our father's compound?" he asked, his voice sharp. Ejike just chuckled, a low, weary sound. "Home is home, my brother." Stepping inside the family house was like stepping back in time. The old wooden clock still ticked on the wall, and the faint, sweet scent of palm wine hung in the air from gatherings long past. But something else lingered too, a cold, sharp scent of suspicion. That evening, he gathered his siblings. "I didn't come here for trouble," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "I came to make peace. We've been apart for far too long." Obiora let out a dry, bitter laugh. "Peace? After 15 years? You didn't even show up for Papa's burial." The words hung in the air, heavy and accusatory. "I know," Ejike admitted, his gaze falling to the floor. "I regret that every single day. I was foolish. But I'm here now, and I want to make it right." Later that night, Uchenna's wife, who had been listening from the shadows, cornered her husband. "Be careful," she whispered urgently. "Why would he suddenly appear now? Do you think he heard about the land documents?" Ah, the land documents. Just a week earlier, a letter had arrived from the government. The family's ancestral farmland, the very source of their father's wealth, was to be acquired for a major road project. The compensation was a staggering sum, millions of naira. Uchenna had kept it a secret. Until now, with Ejike's return, a sinister plan began to take root. Over the next few days, Ejike genuinely tried to reconnect. He mended the leaking roof, a task Uchenna had neglected for years. He brought gifts for his nieces and nephews, their joyful laughter a stark contrast to their parents' cold smiles. He even joined Uchenna at the farm, his hands digging into the same earth their father had once tilled. But every gesture of goodwill was met with a wall of polite indifference. One night, as he was about to lock his door, he heard his brothers arguing in the corridor. Their voices were hushed, but their words were like knives. "I told you he's here for the land money," Obiora hissed. "We can't let him take a single kobo after abandoning us all those years." "He is still our brother," Uchenna replied, but his voice was weak, laced with uncertainty. "Brother?" Obiora scoffed. Did he remember that when he ran away with Papa's money? Ejike's heart felt like a stone in his chest. He wanted to burst out, to scream his innocence, to tell them the real story. But he held back. He decided to wait, to see how deep their greed truly ran. The next day, Ifeoma arrived from Onitsha, a vision of gold jewelry and expensive perfume. She threw her arms around him, her smile wide and dazzling. "My dear brother, so you finally remembered us." But when he looked into her eyes, he saw the same cold glint he'd seen in his brother's. That evening, they held a family meeting under the great mango tree in the compound. Palm wine flowed, and for a moment, with the sound of forced laughter filling the air, it almost felt like old times. Then Uchenna cleared his throat. "Since you are back, Ejike," he announced, "we will all go to the old farm tomorrow morning. We'll pour libations to Papa's spirit to show everyone that the Okafor family is one again." Ejike smiled, a genuine smile for the first time. "I would like that very much." They set out before the sun had even kissed the horizon. The morning air was thick with a chilling mist. As they walked the narrow path through the bush, an unnatural quiet settled around them. No birds sang, no insects chirped. There was only the sound of dry leaves crunching under their feet. At the edge of the farm, where the land sloped down toward the stream, Uchenna handed him a bottle of gin. "You will pour the libation yourself, since you are the last son. It is tradition." Ejike knelt on the damp earth, the familiar scent of the soil filling his senses. He uncorked the bottle and began to pray, his voice thick with emotion. "Papa, forgive my foolishness. Please, let peace return to our family." When he finished his prayer and turned around, he froze. His blood ran cold. Uchenna, Obiora, and Ifeoma stood over him, not with reverence, but with shovels gripped tightly in their hands. Their faces were twisted into masks of grim determination. "Brothers, sister, what are you doing?" he stammered. Obiora's smile was a terrifying thing. "You should never have come back." They lunged. He scrambled backward, falling over a root. A desperate struggle began. Obiora swung the shovel, but Ejike dodged, the metal blade slamming into a tree with a dull thud. Ifeoma screamed, her voice shrill with panic. "Don't let him escape!" Ejike shoved Uchenna aside and ran. He ran for his life, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He could hear their footsteps crashing through the undergrowth behind him. He tripped, tumbling head over heels down a small slope. His head struck something hard, and the world dissolved into blackness. When consciousness returned, it was dark. He was lying in a shallow pit, his body aching, his head throbbing. He could hear muffled voices from above. "Cover it well," Uchenna's voice commanded, strained and breathless. "By tomorrow, the money will be in our account." Panic, cold, and absolute seized him. He tried to move, but his limbs were heavy, unresponsive. He could hear the soft, terrifying sound of sand and dirt hitting the sides of the pit. In a final, desperate act of faith, he whispered a prayer, his voice a trembling thread of sound. "Papa, if your spirit still walks this land, please save your son." In that instant, a jagged fork of lightning tore across the sky, followed by a clap of thunder so loud it seemed to shake the very foundations of the earth. The wind howled through the trees like a vengeful spirit. The villagers would later talk about it for years, the strangest, most violent storm they had ever witnessed. By morning, a hunter making his way through the forest stumbled upon a strange sight. Near the old dilapidated yam barn, Ejike lay unconscious. Beside him was a shallow, half-filled pit. The earth around it was soaked from the storm. But strangely, the pit itself seemed untouched. His siblings were nowhere to be seen. When Ejike was carried back to the village, the elders gathered, their faces grave. Uchenna, Obiora, and Ifeoma were found later, huddled by the stream, drenched and muttering nonsense. Their minds, the healers said, had wandered off into the bush and never returned. They lived out their days in a fog of confusion, a living testament to their crime. When Ejike saw them, he wept. "I only wanted peace," he said, his voice breaking. Years passed. People began to speak of him in hushed, reverent tones, the man who came back from the grave. He used the compensation money to rebuild his father's house, not for himself, but for the children of his broken siblings, raising them as his own. Whenever a stranger would ask him how he survived that terrible night, he would offer a faint, sad smile and gesture towards the old farm. "Blood may betray you," he would say, "but the earth never forgets who is truly innocent." And so, the last son of Nkanu became both a legend and a warning, a solemn reminder that while greed can dig a grave, it can never, ever bury the truth.